Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today we're looking at the top 10 buildings of all time.
And these are personal, like that we like the best. Like this, like I didn't look at someone else's list and say these are the top 10.
I agree.
But you and I may have went a different direction with this.
We probably went a different direction, as we tend to do. I really tried to factor in how cool it is and
I did that.
The time frame that it was built.
I did a little bit of that.
And things like that. But Luke, hit me with number 10.
My number 10, and this one is pretty recognizable. This one is called the Gherkin. This is 30 St. Mary Axe Street in England. It's the one that's shaped like an elongated egg.
It is, yes.
This is located in London, United Kingdom. The architect is Norman Foster and Ken Shuttleworth. It was completed December 2003, so it's a relatively new one as my list goes. The style is pretty crazy because it's sustainable architecture. That's meaning everything they're using is, trying to conserve energy and reusable resources. It's also considered postmodern because of the actual aesthetic style of it. And a few fun facts. So each floor rotates 5 degrees from the one below because it's kind of like a spiral egg.
Neat.
The second fun fact is despite its curved shape, there's only one single piece of curved glass in the entire building, and it's the very top cap. Every other one is basically a facet.
Oh, that's
all the
interesting
way around.
Because if you look at it, it looks totally
spherical. You would think it would be,
but
it's just a bunch of facets is what it is. And the last fun fact is the 16th floor, because it's an egg shape. It's kind of fattest in the middle. The 16th floor is actually the largest floor when you measure square foot, and it is 1,816 square meters. So it's about 17 miles wide.
That's not bad. The Gherkin's an okay choice. You didn't go with the Shard. Maybe that's on your list later on. I do know you love London. One thing I thought was interesting about the Gherkin, other than the name, is that, and this is a London problem, right? It's this cool, modern skyscraper slapped right in there with all these really old, cool-looking old buildings.
Yeah,
and,
it's really out of place.
What can you do, right? What can you do? A kind of a curse and a blessing.
Okay, you're number 10, James.
Number 10 for me, the Taj Mahal. Location is Agra, India. The architect is Ustad Ahmad Lori.
Friend of the show.
Long-time listener. Built back in the 1630 to 1653, and its style is Islamic Mughal. I just saw the UPS truck leave your house. Okay, so a couple fun facts about it. Legend has it that Emperor Shah Jahan intended to build another Taj Mahal in black marble across the river from where this one's located, but a war with his sons interrupted those plans. So maybe not a real family man. Okay. The Taj Mahal is a famous Indian landmark, obviously. It attracts more than 1 million tourists every year. That's a lot of visitors.
Interesting.
It's rumored that the emperor ordered that all of the workers who worked on the mausoleum, which is what it is, get their hands chopped off so that no one could make another one like it ever again. What? How terrible.
How insane was he?
I know. And last but not least, the materials that were used to build the Taj Mahal were transported to the construction site by a whopping 1,000 elephants.
That's a way to transport stuff.
It is. It really is.
All right. My number 9. This is La Pedrera, or Stone Quarry. This is located in Barcelona, Spain. And to give you a visual of what this one looks like, it's basically this kind of curvy looking.
Oh, I see it.
Building. It's in a lot of, kind of pictures. The architect is Antoni Gaudi. It was built in 1912, and the style is called modernism. And modernism is also known as Catalan modernism. And the idea is it's supposed to be very organic in nature. And a fun fact about that is there is not a single right angle in the entire building, James.
Interesting. That is a unique looking building. I will give you that.
Yeah, it's one of the most prominent in all of Spain. There's a lot of, actually, I think I have 2 Spain buildings back to back here, but it's one of the most iconic buildings in Spain you can think of.
It almost makes me uncomfortable looking at it because of how wavy it is.
Yeah, it's weird looking. It looks like a
Yeah.
giant hobbit house.
Yeah.
Like from a distance.
Ooh, that is creepy. All right. Is that all you have for that
That's
one?
all I got.
All right. Number 9 on my list, perhaps coming up next for you, is Sagrada Familia. No?
No.
Oh, so this is also in Spain, in Barcelona. Architect Antoni Gaudi.
Same guy.
Gaudi, same guy. Yep. 1882 and continuing. And the style is modernism. And so I say it was started in 1882. It's still not done being constructed. This is a long time to build a
I'd
building.
say
Luke.
that's a heck of a delay.
Yeah. Again, no straight lines or sharp corners in nature. Therefore, buildings must have no straight lines or sharp corners. Apparently, this is a rule that this guy lived by. So construction started in 82. When this dude died in 1926, only a quarter of the basilica was completed. And then there was a whole bunch of like permit issues and reasons that it didn't finish, but they're projecting that it finishes in 2026.
This is a church, right? This is a cathedral.
So interesting about that, I'll move down to my last fun fact about it. When it was constructed, at first, it was supposed to be a simple Roman Catholic church. Later on, it was designated as a cathedral. And then in 2010, Pope Benedict the XVI, whatever the heck that might be, declared it a basilica. And for those of you who are not in the know, like myself,
Yes.
there's a distinction. A cathedral is a seat for a bishop. So it turns out to be like a real great honor for this building. So this is now a seat for a bishop.
Okay.
So rather interesting stuff.
My number 8 is the Guggenheim.
I knew it.
No, this is not the one you're thinking of. This is the Guggenheim Billboa, Bilbao. This is in Spain, so this isn't the Guggenheim in New York.
Good.
It's also a museum.
Looks just as terrible.
It's very similar. The architect is a cat by the name of Frank Gehry, Gehry. It was built in 1997. So again, a relatively new building on the list. The style is very interesting. This is considered deconstructivism. So you're probably asking yourself, James, what is deconstructivism? I'm sure you're asking yourself that. So I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So deconstructivism, the style, is supposed to give the impression of the fragments of the building as it's being constructed. So there's an absence of harmony and continuity and symmetry. So it's meant to be this, it looks like it should continue and then it stops and then something starts like 10 feet behind it. It kind of looks, it looks like the Guggenheim a little bit, but a little bit different. It's called the most important part of architectural influence since 1980.
Wow. That's
pretty impressive.
A whole 40 years.
I don't know. It's a really interesting building. I like it.
Man, you and I have such different taste in styles. Like anything that isn't a 90-degree bend hurts my brain. And so that building just like melts my mind.
It's a gorgeous building. You know what it looks like? It looks like the Winter Soldier's arm. It's silver and shiny.
I don't know what to do with that.
You know who the Winter Soldier is.
I know the Winter Soldier. Yes.
It looks like his arm that's made out of vibranium.
Is he the new Captain America?
No, you're thinking of the Falcon guy.
Falcon guy.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Anyways,
he's not the new one.
Number 8 for me, the Burj Khalifa.
I'm assuming Wiz owns it.
Wiz does not own it.
What?
It is located in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. The architects were Adrian Smith, Owings and Merrill. The dates it was being built, 2004 to 2010. And it's style is Islamic neo-Islamic, like new Islamic.
Okay.
So did I pick it because this is the tallest building in the world?
Did you?
Yes, that's impressive. Did I pick it so I could make a Mia Khalifa joke? Yes, I also did that. Kids, if you don't know who that is, don't look her up. It's 3 times as tall as the Eiffel Tower and nearly twice as tall as the Empire State Building. It's
Really?
828 meters or 2,716 and a half feet tall.
Wow.
So
So
you
that's
can
like
go
2
up there.
miles tall.
Oh my
roughly.
goodness, it's so many miles,
Oh
like
my
half.
goodness.
But yeah, but one more so we can get through this quickly. Laid end to end, all of its pieces would stretch over a quarter of the way around the world if you took all of the pieces of it and laid it end to end.
That's interesting.
That's stupid. But anywho, that's all of my fun facts for you for that. Really cool building, really tall, gorgeous landscaping along with it.
Gotcha. My
All
number
right.
7?
Number 7.
My number 7 is Al Khazen?
Capone?
No, Al Khazen, Khazen. This is located in Petra, Jordan. This is a mausoleum for the architect. They don't know who the architect is, but it was designed to be a mausoleum for King Neabet. He was the king. It was a mausoleum of the King Neabet, King Artaxerxes the IV, whatever that is, around the 1st century AD. You know what this one is, James.
Can you spell it for me?
Al-Khazen. As soon as you see the picture, you're going to know it. Its style is considered ancient Baroque. So it's highly decorative,
it's that
very
thing in the
theatrical.
mountain.
Yeah, so it's visited by over 500,000 tourists a year. And everybody knows what this is the second I say this. Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade. This is that building they went into that was carved in the side of the mountain in Indiana Jones.
That's a pretty neat looking one.
It's actually much smaller than you think because they carved it
small.
out of the rock. It actually doesn't go back very far.
I had that as like a potential option on my list because it is pretty cool looking, but I feel like it's just that like carving into the mountain part that's really impressive to me.
Yeah.
Okay, before we go on with my number, 7?
Yes.
Let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I assume our sponsor has to be, I can't even think of a good
Wiz
one.
Khalifa.
Wiz Khalifa.
No, Wiz did not sponsor us, but we do have a couple of shout outs.
Who do we got?
We have Scott P. Scott says, so I love listening to podcasts, but I haven't been able to find the perfect podcast that I enjoy listening to on a consistent basis.
I'm guessing he found it.
But then I came across your podcast on Spotify the past week, and I think I finally found the one.
Nice.
Yeah, Scott. So
Thank
he
you,
also
Scott.
likes that we are family friendly. Sorry about the Mia Khalifa joke. And I let him know we have to be family friendly because Kathy listens to my podcast.
Yes.
My mom does not like the 4-letter words. So
she does not.
That. So thank you for writing in, Scott. We also had Brian C. who wrote in. A neighbor from down south in Mexico. He's an industrial designer. So basically an engineer in my book.
Essentially.
I mean, that's what I think. And says, you two really are killing it. And the podcast is definitely worth it. I mean, by worth it, he means like the $0 people have to pay. So I appreciate that.
It's worth their time, James. And
that's
nothing
right.
is more important than time.
That's true. There's always something new to learn. So how nice is that?
Very nice. Thank you, Brian.
So if any of you have something nice to say to us or something mean to say to Luke, if you just want, God, it's pretty good. Come on. If you want to tell us that this list is bogus, or if you just want to say hello, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to review, share, like, and as always, you can yell at your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering podcast.
That's
Let's
right.
hear your number. Let's hear your number 7.
So this one is a little bit of cheating. It is the Forbidden City, located in Beijing, China.
I had that, and I was like,
unknown
this is a city.
architects. So again, a lot of my picks are heavily skewed to places that I've been before. So having actually seen it in person, it's just crazy impressive how large this is. it's crazy. So for those of you who don't know, it's like this giant collection of buildings. So it's not just like one big building like a lot that we're talking about here. It's actually the world's largest collection of preserved medieval wooden structures. It occupies 720,000 square meters, which is 7,750,000 square feet. So it's kind of big.
Kind of.
It's estimated that 1 million people worked on it. It has 90 palace quarters and courtyards, 980 buildings, and over 8,728 rooms. And I walked into every single one of them.
Does this have the Terracotta Army? Is that the same thing?
I don't think it's located there. But,
okay. You know I'm talking about those terracotta statues of the warriors. I thought that was in the Forbidden City. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. One other fun fact about this, there are no trees in the main court. There are two theories as to why. One, as the outer court was where solemn public ceremonies were held, the emperor's supreme godly power and imperial dignity were displayed. No trees were allowed. They would overshadow and disrupt the majesty of the atmosphere. And number two, which is the reason I kind of figure it happens, a lack of vegetation gives no spot for assassins to hang out. And so, and if you've been there, it's super open. So there's no way somebody's sneaking in without getting seen.
All righty, my number six. This one's close to home, James, and this is why this list I think drastically different. This is the old Allegheny County Jail. So if you look up this building, so you got to do old Allegheny County Jail because there's a new one and it's a terrible building. My wife's office used to overlook it and she could look right at the jail, the new one. But the old one is incredible. It's located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The architect is H.H. Richardson. It was built in 1886 and it's considered Romanesque revival style. And these two fun facts were probably the best fun facts ever.
I know where you're going.
The first one is the jail's most famous inmate was a guy by the name of Alexander Berkman. He had plotted to assassinate Henry Clay Frick. And if you remember, Henry Clay Frick was the one who brought in the Pinkertons, the 300 hired guards, to block the Union workers from coming to the steel factory. There was a gunfight. A bunch of Union guys died and a bunch of the Pinkertons died. And it was this big, massive thing.
Was that our How is Steel Made episode?
I think so.
About that? Check
I think
that
so.
one out. It's a good one.
But this guy was an anarchist and wanted to kill Henry Clay Frick because he was into like the Union and kind of controlling different things. So he wanted to assassinate. The second fun fact is even better. The 1984 movie Mrs. Schoeffel is based off of two escapees from the old Allegheny County Jail by the name of Jack and Eddie Biddle. Ed, one of the inmates that escaped, falls in love with the warden's wife named Kate Stoffel. She would read the Bible to the inmates as a way of kind of, doing her duty and kind of helping out these inmates, people down on their luck. Well, apparently she falls in love with one of these criminals and they escaped with her assistance. And
Very
the
good.
movie starred Kate. Oh my goodness. I'm totally drawing a blank on who it starred. It was 1984. Check it out.
All right. A couple other fun facts for you. Number one, Silence of the Lambs also had some recording done there.
That's right.
Number two, it is now family court for Pittsburgh. So my wife goes there regularly for court.
That's right.
And number three, I had wedding pictures taken in front of it because it is one bad looking building.
It's an amazing looking building.
Yeah. Okay, number 6 on my list, similar to the old Allegheny jail, the Kremlin in Moscow, Russia. So I was between two. There's the one that has like all the colors and like the spinny top things, super, super famous looking. What is it called? It is the St. Basil's.
Yep.
Cathedral. So that's not the one I'm talking about, but I asked one of my friends from Russia which one's more impressive, and he said the Kremlin by far.
You have a lot of Russian friends?
I have one Russian friend. So it was built like from 1329 through all sorts of dates, basically because of war, because of overthrows of government, blah, blah, blah. So the last time that I see something really big done to it was 1849. So, a mere 500 years. The styles are Russian, classical, neo-Gothic. And if you look at the buildings that I name, a lot of them fall in that Gothic, neo-Gothic
Mm-hmm.
look. So apparently that's what I like. It's fun fact, the Kremlin is actually the birthplace of the Gremlins. So that's not true. The Gremlins
You had me.
obviously came from Mogwais. Not only is it the largest medieval fortress in Russia, it's also the biggest active fortress in all of Europe. So that's
Interesting.
interesting. The Kremlin walls got their red brick look, which they're famous for, in the 19th century. Before that, they were all white, and they were painted white to preserve the bricks. Red Square has nothing to do with the red color. Um, and there was something else cool there. Oh, back in the day, the four towers of the Kremlin were topped with two-headed eagles, which had been the Russian coat of arms since the 15th century. In 1935, the Soviet government was like, no more of those eagles, and they melted them down and replaced
What?
them with five pointed stars that are now
Interesting.
on top of those. Yes. All
Okay.
right, number 5.
My number 5. This is the Fairmont Les Chateaux Frontenac, Frontenac. This is a hotel up in Quebec in Canada. The architect
at
it's beautiful. You've seen pictures of it, I'm sure. The architect is Bruce Pierce. It was built in 1893. The style is chateau-esque. I have no idea what that means. And my 3 fun facts are like pretty amazing. So the first one is when Queen Elizabeth II just decides to visit Canada, that's typically where she stays in the royal suite. Roosevelt, Churchill, and Mackenzie planned the invasion of Normandy at that hotel. The fathers of the Confederation also gathered here to discuss unifying the British North American colonies, which would later become Canada.
Wow, very impressive.
Lots of important. So Canada's formation basically started there, and the invasion of Normandy was planned. That's a pretty impressive set of credentials to have for a hotel.
It is. I mean,
Beautiful,
that is
isn't it?
quite the building. It's very beautiful. It's very far north. I will never go visit that place. I mean, that's in line with like the tip of Maine.
I forgot you don't like the colds.
No. Oh my. Okay, very interesting choice, Luke. Number 5 for me is a slightly lesser well-known building. It is Notre Dame in
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Notre Dame, far more impressive than Notre Dame. The Notre Dame in its own right is something. Paris, France, location. Architect, Bishop Maurice de Sully. Dates 1163 to 1345, and French Gothic is the style. Interestingly enough, a pagan city lies below the cathedral, which is kind of interesting.
A pagan city?
A pagan city.
Is that where the skulls are? Isn't there some skull thing with the catacombs?
I don't think the catacombs are under it. I think that's different.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
A Gallo-Roman city known as Lutetia was underneath it. Thank you. It was built right over top of those remains, and they've like dug up a bunch of them over the years. In 1793, in the middle of the French Revolution, 28 statues of biblical kings in the cathedral were pulled down with ropes, and they were decapitated by a mob.
What?
Well, that was all the rage because King Louis at the time had just been guillotined.
He was chopping heads like crazy.
Yeah, so since his head got chopped off, they chopped off all the statues' heads, which was interesting. All 20 of its bells, except for the really, really big one, which is apparently named Emmanuel, were removed and melted down to make cannons at one point. And what's really interesting and shocks me, so first Napoleon decided to have his coronation there, and the building was in really bad shape. And they did some repairs, but it was still really crappy. Then Victor Hugo wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and it was such a huge success that they did a giant restoration project on the whole church and made it beautiful again. So it was like falling down, probably going to get torn down. And those two things kind of saved it to, well, what it was up until the fire happened.
Yeah, that had that big fire. Now there's a big restoration project underway right now.
Yeah. All right, before we go any further, my goodness, let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So here's my rant, folks. I think I mentioned it on maybe the last episode, depending on how you're listening to these and if we're even posting them in order. But I've been doing a social media fast, meaning I'm not doing any social media, and I'm coming up on the beginning of week 3. And I'm going to be honest with you, James. I don't think I felt better mentally than I have in the last 3 weeks. Because if you think about, unfortunately, Twitter and Facebook, at least recently, has been filled with just mostly rubbish. And it's so weird to not sit there and just mindlessly look at, Facebook or Twitter and just kind of scroll through things. So this is more of a PSA for everybody. If you're feeling a little down, a little depressed this time of year, I would strongly encourage people to try a 1-week social media fast. And I'm doing this with a friend. We decided to move it out to 2 weeks, and we're actually going to go for a full 30 days is the plan.
If any of our favorite social media platforms are listening, we love you and feel free to sponsor us.
We do. I just won't be listening.
There you go. I've done that before. If it wasn't literally my entire job, I would not be on any of the social media platforms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't blame you at all for that. Number
Alrighty,
4.
my number 4. So this is the Sentinel. This is a building located in San Francisco, California. I've seen this building personally. A couple times I've been out to San Francisco for work. The architect is someone by the name of Salfield and Kohlberg. It was built in 1907. The style is, I think it's Flatron, Flatron, Renaissance. And it's basically a pointy building. That's actually a whole style of building. It's a triangular shaped building, and it's an amazing looking building. And there's lots of these buildings you'll see, and they basically serve a purpose whenever you build a city structure. So this is an interesting fact about these types of buildings. When you're doing a layout and you do any kind of roads that aren't running parallel and you come to a point, it was always wasted space. And the idea of these triangular shaped buildings was to utilize the space pretty effectively. The other interesting fun fact about this one is Francis Ford Coppola owns it.
Oh, wow.
I have no idea why. The cat that directed The Godfather and a few other
very
movies.
Affordable place then. Okay. I saw there's buildings just like this, all over, right?
Oh, there's a ton of them.
It reminds me of Paris. I remember one specifically like that I thought was super cool.
Well, Paris has a lot of those roundabout type areas where everything
exactly.
converges to the center. So you end up with all this unused space if you don't put a building there.
Yep, exactly. Very cool. Interesting choice. Okay, number 4 for me, I have St. Peter's. So obviously Vatican City. If any of you have ever been there, you have different options. You can walk through and see the painted ceiling thing. What's that thing called, Luke? They went up, painted the ceiling. It's all famous. Total waste of time. Don't ever do it. Never do that.
Is that the one where they don't allow you to take pictures?
Yeah, you can't take pictures.
You're like sardines.
I snuck pictures because I'm bad like that. But if you go to St. Peter's, that thing's cool. The square outside's amazing. The building's amazing. Crazy. And if you look at the few unknowns that were involved in the architecture, like Donato, Bramante, Michelangelo, just all of these famous people. It took 120 years to build back in 1506. Renaissance again, Baroque styles. There are over 100 plus tombs in St. Peter's, including 91 popes that have been buried there.
Wow.
The Holy Roman Emperor Otto II and Swedish Queen Christina, who abdicated the throne to convert to Catholicism. So they were like, yay, Christina.
Like Aguilera, right?
Yeah, I think it's her aunt, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong on that. Rumor has it, this is really weird, Luke. Rumor has it that portraits of every pope in gilded frames, like real fancy gold frames, somewhere in St. Peter's, including empty frames for upcoming popes. How the Vatican knows how many empty frames to have there is a mystery, but there's speculation that they knew or thought they knew when the apocalypse was going to happen. So they knew they only needed a certain number of frames for a certain
That's
number of
interesting.
popes that would exist. So that's that. Number
Alrighty,
3.
my number 3. So this is another local one. This is Bedford Springs Resort here in Pennsylvania. So it's actually located in Bedford, Pennsylvania. The architect is Solomon Filler. It's a hotel now, so it's had an evolution over the years. But the initial first building was constructed in 1806. The style is considered colonial revival, and some really amazing fun. It's a beautiful, beautiful hotel. I've been there a handful of times. So the first fun fact is
Podcast money.
very much podcast money. In 1905, the first indoor swimming pool in the country was constructed there.
Wow, I see it. It's big.
It was fed with mineral water and freshwater spring water. And they also had a solarium and hydrotherapy rooms, first ones that ever existed.
Interesting.
And in 1856, another fun fact, the first transatlantic cable, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the whole teletype thing, the messages that came across the Atlantic. The very first one was received by President Buchanan in the lobby of the Bedford Springs Hotel.
Interesting facts.
Beautiful hotel.
It's very pretty.
Yeah.
It feels very southern to me.
Yeah.
It feels like Charlottesville.
Well, it's the colonial revival style
kind of stuff.
Very much so. Yeah.
Which is weird for Pennsylvania.
It kind of looks like what's the name of Thomas Jefferson's house? Monticello.
Monticello, right?
Very much.
Number 3 for me. The Great Pyramids, or really even just the Great Pyramid.
It's not a building.
It for sure is a building.
I guess people do live in there, aliens, right?
Aliens live in there. In Giza, way back in 2650 BC, ancient Egyptian is the style. And the architects, turns out they're unknown.
Aliens.
Yeah, aliens, obviously. 2.3 million stone blocks were used to build them. I'm actually not going to waste your time with fun facts because you could just go listen to our episode that was about the Great Pyramids. I think we were comparing some of the great structures out there. One thing that I thought it had going for it here is that it's the only remaining and the oldest of all of the ancient wonders. So the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the Temple of Artemis, and then the ones that maybe didn't even exist, like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the Statue of Zeus, and the Colossus. So super cool stuff. But I have to throw this in there. I know we're really over, but that's
all right. This is a good episode.
John P. wrote in, just coincidentally, he must have listened to our old episode. In 1986, him and a bunch of friends published and copyrighted a work called Pharaoh's Secrets of the Pyramids, which detailed his theory on the Great Pyramid being built using water rather than the strength of men. He has a whole bunch of stuff that went along with this. He also sent us some PowerPoints of his writings and stuff that he wants us to check out. Maybe John would like to come on our show sometime. It would be really interesting to hear.
I'd like to talk about that, I think.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to number 2. Luke.
Number 2, I'll go through this quickly. So this is the new town hall. This is in Munich, Germany. You've seen this when you've been to the office in Germany there, James. It is in one of the Marienplatz, so one of the big squares. The architect is Gregor von Hausbrasser. It was built in 1909. The style is Gothic Revival. And the fun fact is the Glockenspiel. So this is basically a clock that has like these animatronic, they're not really animatronic because it's all old school, but basically it's over 100 years old, and 3 times a day, these figurines come out and dance and play music. It's about a 15-minute show, and you can, from an observation deck at the top of the new town hall, on a clear day, you can see the Alps.
Very cool. That is a very pretty building.
You're number 2.
Versailles in France. Louis kind of had that thing put together, French Baroque style. So the palace, I've never been there. This is based off of my wife saying it's the most impressive place she's ever been. And if it's more impressive than the places I've been with her, it must be amazing. Some really cool stuff is it's built on swampland. There was originally like a hunting cabin there for the king. And he was like, yo, I need this to be my new palace away from
Nice.
everything. And he took all this swampland and had all of this major like dirt moving to like fill it in.
Probably drove piles down into the swamp. Yeah,
Yeah,
all kinds
like
of stuff.
it's amazing. So it became home to the King of France between 1662 and 1789. It's one of the most important landmarks in French history. It's a World Heritage Site. Something I thought was really interesting is that King Louis used to live in the Louvre
The
before this was
museum?
done. Yeah. So that was a
I
palace
didn't know
before it
that.
was a giant museum. So really
Okay.
cool. Also, of course, in 1919, the Palace of Versailles is where the Treaty of Versailles was signed, putting an end to
Hmm.
World War One.
How
So
nice.
all very cool. All right, number
Okay.
one, Luke.
Drum roll
Drum
for me. And I
roll.
think you may have known this one, James. We've talked about this before, but this is Falling Water.
I knew this
And
was coming.
it's
Moldy
located,
water.
no, Falling Water. It's located in Mill Run, Pennsylvania. This is Western Pennsylvania in the United States. The architect is my absolute favorite. Good time, long friend of the show. We actually did an episode on him, I
We
think.
did. We haven't posted it yet.
Frank Lloyd Wright. It was built in 1936. It's considered prairie style. So fun fact about this, prairie style is actually an architectural style that Frank Lloyd Wright himself kind of defined. And this is a style that believes that the structure should reflect and pay homage to the surrounding environment. So
Does
kind of
that.
integrated into the waterfall. If you haven't seen pictures of it, Google it. It's beautiful. And in 2019, so just last year, the United National Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also called UNESCO, designated a World Heritage
Oh,
Site,
there you go.
which is pretty cool, along with 7 other of Frank Lloyd Wright's homes and or buildings that he designed.
Very cool. It is really awesome looking.
One of my
Granted, I mean,
favorites.
it was filled with mold at one point because it was so poorly designed, but it is very awesome
It's
looking.
beautiful.
It is. My number one,
Drum
the
roll.
the Roman Colosseum
I knew
in
my
Rome,
Julie told me
Italy.
that I should do the Colosseum. I was like, no way, James is going to pick that.
Dude, the Colosseum is mind blowing. It was built in like 70, not like 1870,
Just 7-0.
70. It's a classical Roman style. Of course, they don't know who the architect was, but Emperor Vespasian
Nailed it.
Vespasian?
No,
Sure.
you
Built
got it.
it. The Colosseum is the largest amphitheater in the world. Oval in shape, it measures 189 meters long, 50 meters high. That's like 12 stories. It was built so long ago. There's 80 entrances and it can seat about 50,000 spectators. The first games were held in 80 AD under Emperor Titus, the other guy's son, and they ran for 100 straight days.
Wow.
And something really interesting, other than the cool underground passages, the 36 trap doors that it had, the ability to flood it to reenact water battles. Besides all that, it also had basically a giant awning that could be moved around and rotated on top to protect the people watching from the sun and getting
That's
sunburns.
crazy tech for back
Yeah,
then.
exactly.
So,
it is so impressive.
The movie Gladiator with good friend of the show Russell Crowe,
Yeah,
was
long
that
time listener.
movie where he was fighting in the end? That was supposedly the Colosseum. That was their version of the Colosseum. Is that
I
right?
don't remember if that's true or not. I
Okay.
can't remember. I thought he might have been in like Circus Maximus or something like that, which
Okay.
is down the road, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. I did have some honorable mentions.
Let me
The
hear 'em.
Duomo in Florence, the cathedral, super impressive. Neuschwanstein Castle, basically this coolest castle ever. House of Parliament, I think, is really cool. St. Basil's, as I said, and Hagia Sophia in Istanbul.
Okay.
All super cool. I did have some overrateds, but I won't mention those.
How nice of you.
Yeah. Luke, I feel like we were all winners with this episode.
We
but that
were,
my
James.
list definitely won.
Oh, how can Frank Lloyd Wright's house not be better than a Colosseum? Come on.
That's fair. All right. If any of you have a building that you think should be on this list that we left off, because there's probably a lot, if you think our lists are great, if you want to weigh in on which one was better, or you just want to say hi, why don't you email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.